first, welcome to all of you in attendance. We're very excited about our presentation today. And so if you haven't already, share any of your socials in the chat, as well as if you're going to attend the Tableau conference. And I want to introduce you to our leadership team. So, I told you this mouse wheel is not working well for me today. There are 6 of us on the Florida Tug leadership team. We're here to help if we can. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can contact us at the orlandotug@gmail.com, or there's our social media connections there. We are also very proud of 2 of our members, Yamil and Aaron, who are going to be presenting at their 3 at 3 show live at the Tableau conference. So for those of you who are attending, I recommend introducing yourselves to Aaron and Yamil. They are great guys and they know a lot about Tableau. And then the other thing I wanted to share is we are going to give away a $25 Tableau store gift card. So please stay in attendance until the end of the event to make sure that you're here for that giveaway. Only those who are here at the end are eligible. With that, I want to introduce Josh Wilson. He is an insights consultant, and prior to starting out on his own, he worked at some of the big 4 companies. Josh has a lot of expertise in Tableau, and as someone who's only created 1 Tableau story, I'm very interested to learn more about how he uses them and his best tips and practices. So with that, I'll hand it over to Josh. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Erica. Let me share my screen. Hello, everyone. I'm Josh Wilson, and I'm excited to talk about Tableau stories today. Once my slide will move. So a quick background on me. As Erica mentioned, I'm an independent consultant freelancer. I do a lot of Tableau work, and specifically around market research and surveys. I've been doing that for the past couple of years. Before that, I worked for Deloitte Consulting for 12 years in a variety of roles. I was always drawn to data and analyzing and visualizing data. I started using Tableau in 2013, I think. It wasn't like the main part of my role at Deloitte, but it was always something that I gravitated towards any chance that I could get. I'm from Ohio originally, and was mentioning earlier that actually Erica and I went to the same college, Youngstown State University, go Penguins. And I moved to Chicago, I think 13 years ago. And I've been here since then, aside from I lived in Berlin for 3 years. So that's quick background on me. And I use Tableau stories quite a bit, which is why we're here today. So we have a quick polling question. I want to know if you guys have used Tableau stories. I'm going to launch the poll. Hopefully you can see the poll now. Yes, I see answers coming in. If you don't know what Tableau stories are, then that's perfect. You're in the right place.
That's a good third option you put there, Josh.
Yeah. Got 43 out of 50 have responded. Another couple seconds here to respond to the poll. All right. Let's see if I can share the results. So we've got over half of you have not used Tableau stories. That's good. A third of you have. And 10%, 11% don't even know or haven't yeah, don't even know what a Tableau Story is. So that's great. I do have a question for those of you who said no. So you've you're aware of Tableau Stories, but you haven't used them. If you wouldn't mind typing into the chat why you haven't used Tableau Stories, what's holding you back? Maybe you haven't had an opportunity. That's fine, but I want to know, why haven't you used Tableau Stories? Just haven't got there yet? Don't know how to use in the business context. Perfect. We'll talk about that. Need to know how to use, still a novice. Yep, got a lot of responses. Just haven't used it. Is it different than a dashboard? We'll talk about that. Haven't had opportunities, haven't found the right scenario. Do not see value in my company or the use case. Okay, so we're going to talk about a lot of those points. We'll talk about when we might use it. I'll tell you about when I've used it, when I found it most useful, and we'll talk about different examples. And if you still have questions, I'm not sure if we mentioned this, but feel free to throw them in the chat anytime, or maybe if I don't know if there's a Q&A. If you guys, Eric or Aaron, if you have a preference where you want people to ask questions, but you guys feel free to chime in, and then we'll either take them as they go or stop at certain points. So in Tableau, a story is a sequence of visualizations that work together to convey information. I'm going to look at a couple of examples and also talk about why stories are slightly different from dashboards. This is one example from Ben Jones. Very, very simple and really in the theme of, it's a story, telling a story. There's 4 different story points in the story, and it's talking about the world population. World population was 3 billion in 1960. And before 2000, the world's population had doubled by 2013. And then when this was created, I think, continues to climb past 7 billion. And then in another 30 years, it will cross 10 billion. So it's a story. There's different story points here that are each kind of leading up to this conclusion of the story. This is actually built on one worksheet behind the scenes, which is something we'll talk about. So that, in a nutshell, is what a story is kind of walking through a particular subject topic that you want to convey information about. There's another just quick example. This one's from Andy Kriebel. A few more story points in here. You'll hear me refer to them as slides as well, because that's, I kind of use it as like an interactive PowerPoint. So this is kind of taking people through Arsenal's injury crisis. You'll notice that in a couple of these, there are opportunities for some interactivity as well, and that's an option with stories. It doesn't have to just be sort of static, and that's the advantage of Tableau. That's why we use Tableau and not PowerPoint, because we can have that opportunity to interact with the viz. And that's also true with stories. So what's the difference between stories and dashboards? If we think about presenting data versus interacting with data, in my experience, stories are more towards the presentation end of that spectrum. Can you have stories be interactive? Absolutely. And I usually do make my stories interactive. I would say that the dashboards are maybe meant to be more interactive. At least that's how I've used them. As far as exploratory versus explanatory analysis, stories are more towards explanatory, right? You're telling a story. You're walking the audience through a series of story points or slides that you want to, weave together to convey information, right? Whereas dashboards, in my experience, are more exploratory. You can set up the dashboard for yourself or someone else to be able to click lots of filters and view it different ways. Does that mean that all dashboards are just exploratory? No, you could have a dashboard that's just kind of like almost like a single slide, that's purely conveying information, or you could have stories that are super exploratory and allowing you to do different things. This is just the way that I typically use them. When would you use a story? Let's say you have a presentation that to someone in your company or a client, and you want that presentation to be interactive, and you're going to be sharing data, obviously, but you don't want it to be static necessarily in a PowerPoint. You want it to be able to have some interactivity. If you anticipate questions during that presentation and you want to be able to answer those on the fly, or maybe you want to present, maybe you have a dashboard and you kind of have an idea of, you're going to present some information to this dashboard and you want to be able to walk through, okay, I want to filter for these things, or change the view in this way, instead of remembering, okay, do this filter and then present something about the way it looks now, and then do another filter and talk about that. You can set up the story so that it's kind of these snapshots of that single dashboard. You can have multiple story points, multiple slides from a single dashboard, and you can change the view. You can set those filters on each of those story points, each of those slides, and those will remain static. So you're kind of locking in that story that you want to tell. All right, first example of a story that I've put together. I did this for Modal Learning, which is an online employee learning platform. I'm a coach for their Tableau data visualization journey. So I put this together as an example of a way to present information, and I chose a story format. So you can see that it kind of looks like a presentation, right? We have a title slide. This is our wine company. This data came from Kaggle. It's just an online data set, so I'm not completely sure where it came from. I just did this more to be illustrative of what you can do with data and with consumer data. So we have this title slide or story point. We have a slide for the project background. We have an executive summary that's talking about some of the key insights that came out of this analysis. Similar to what you might have in a PowerPoint. We have like a section, kind of like a divider slide. Okay, we're gonna look at some demographics, and then we get into our first real sort of dashboard slide. Okay, this is education, and what you can do, as I mentioned, you can have one dashboard that's kind of illustrating multiple points here. In this case, for these next few slides, they're all built on a single dashboard. Let's see, it's this one over here. So I have a single dashboard. It's just looking at one demographic, and there's different one demographic at a time with this parameter over here that's you can pick different demographics. So if you had this just as a dashboard, obviously this could be really interactive, and you could just be able to kind of flip between these. If you want to have it in a story, you can set this to, okay, I know my first one I want to look at education, so I'm going to pick that one. And then the next one I want to talk about marital status, so I'm going to pick that one. And it's going to lock that in. So now if I go back to the education side, it still says education, and it's not tied to dashboard, which I was now set to, in the rest of my workbook and worksheets, that parameter is set to generation. So the easiest way to do this, if I was building this, I'd probably start with education. I can duplicate my story point, and then I would pick, say, household income. I would change this to say household income. And then once I go to another story point here, you can see that says it's updated. I come back here, it's still sitting at household income. So I'm creating multiple slides based on a single dashboard. One cool thing that you can do, and this is actually something that stopped me early on from using stories, is because I thought, okay, I need a dashboard for every single, if I just want to put in like a text slide, that's saying, I just want to have this say, my title slide, or whatever's in there, project background, or maybe I want to change this, title or header. I want to talk about what's on this slide. Talk about education. On the next slide, I want to talk about whatever this is, marital status. I didn't realize that what you can do. So in addition to this parameter kind of being fixed on this particular slide, you can also change the text, and the text is also going to be specific to this particular story point. If I go back to my dashboard here, I just have the words slide header, right? Because I know that that's what I'm going to type something in place of that. So what that means is I can have a single dashboard for, in this case, like a title slide and my end slide, or a just a general sort of text slide where I use this as a divider slide, and I even put insert text here. So let's say we do a blank story point, and I want to put in my text slide. It says insert text here. This is a divider slide. And now it's going to be fixed to that particular story point. So that's I feel like that makes it easier to put these together, because you don't need a dashboard or worksheet for every single slide or story point that you have in here. If you want like a different sort of view, obviously, it's going to reflect the underlying dashboard. So any change to, like in this case, I wanted to have this particular chart and this particular chart next to each other, then that needs to be its own dashboard. I'm not going to get too much into the details of the study. I'll share this if you guys want to take a look on Tableau Public. So just a few more slides. I get into a section where, okay, so now also to kind of illustrate, what you can do with stories, I have this analysis slide. It says, okay, who are our ideal customers? Enter a percentile at the right to figure out what differentiates the biggest wine spenders, meaning who's spending the most wine, who's the most money on wine, or proceed to see some insights we've uncovered. If someone was using this and viewing this kind of on their own, then they could come in here and play around with it, right? So that's one option. It all depends on what you want to do with it. They can come in here and say, okay, I want to see, the 80th percentile, and then, okay, now for each of these different metrics, I can see, what's, in this case, it's the top 20% of wine spenders. What sort of education level do they have? What's their income, etc. So that's one option. You can just say here, and this this is more of like the dashboard sort of format where you're allowing people to kind of play around a little bit more. Or you could kind of pull out some of these and say, okay, looking at those individually. And here's something else, kind of like a tip. / trick that you can do. The one thing you can do with story points, you can't change a whole lot. It's going to be as far as like adding things. You're kind of moving. You're working with the underlying dashboard. What's available on that underlying dashboard. One thing you can do is you can add a text box. So you can drag out some text. This is a text box. This will be really, I mean, it goes on top of anything that, anywhere that you want to put it on this particular slide. And so you can get creative with that. Like what I did here is these are text boxes. And all I've done is I've changed you go to format description, change the opacity here to almost be like if it doesn't want to go back now. Try it again. Nope. This has never happened before. We're live. So theoretically, if that's working, you can change that opacity so that you have sort of like a, it's kind of obvious. This is something that I might have done on a PowerPoint slide, right? Maybe kind of gray out a section of it that you don't want to look at yet. So that's one option. I'm using the same dashboard, but I've just added on these text boxes really that are just a way to kind of gray out some of the other information that and highlight what I want to talk about on this particular slide, right? The other thing that I did in getting creative with text boxes, so I just added a couple text boxes here to call out certain points that I'm talking about in this text at the top of the slide. And if anybody knows how to do this in Tableau, where kind of adding like dots or something as far as text, even if it's like a different like worksheet. This is something I've kind of wrestled with, but I haven't got a good solution, like how to automate something like this where you're based on filters or something, just putting in some like red dots or look at these sort of thing. If anybody knows how to do that, let me know. So the same sort of thing. Now I can go through and say, okay, let's look at marital status and generation. No significant differences for those. Top spenders, kids in the household. Here's a big insight from this particular data set that if you have kids, especially kids under 13, then you're probably not a big wine spender. I personally would disagree with that. I have a 3-year-old and I drink wine a fair amount. So, but obviously that's a sample size of one. So you can kind of get a feel for how you might present data. And here it's so now this is almost like the exact same slide, except all I've changed is the what percentile. So you say, okay, even if we lower the threshold to the top half of the wine spenders, the people who with 0 kids are still really making up quite a bit of that group, right? So there's lots of different possibilities that you can work with here, just using that same underlying dashboard. Couple other slides, kind of similar sort of way that I'm using those slides, and then you can come to what like next steps and recommendations, that kind of thing. Again, these are just text slides, right? So you can really make it like a presentation, and what I've found is this goes over really well with internal stakeholders if you're presenting to a leadership team or with clients. Just that ability, it's just people think it's cool, first of all, and then also you get those additional opportunities to, if people have questions or if you even want to kind of dive into something on the fly, then you have that opportunity. So that is my first example. Let's look at one more example. And this one is from Audience Audit, which is a small market research firm that does audience segmentations for agencies. In this particular study, it's actually a thought leadership piece that's looking at feedback from agencies themselves, which is why I'm able to share it. So in this one, it's from a survey, and the way that we set this up is similar to the previous example. We have title slide, some intro, sort of about the survey, confidence in the results. You could have a slide that's just sort of a graphic slide if you want. There's just a picture that's coming in kind of in the background. And I think this is text. Yeah, see, this is text on the particular dashboard in the background as well. A divider slide. Again, this is just a single, like a section title slide that's going to be used, dashboard that's going to be pulled in multiple times. And for this one, so we're talking about the different segments that came through this attitudinal segmentation, using some of those ideas that, in addition to like parameters and filters that you're selecting, if you just pick something on here, so I can just select, any of these and move to the next one, and it's going to retain that selection as well. If I come back to here, it's still on this fifth group, this loyalty builders. So these 5 segment slides are all the same dashboard underneath. And we get into other types of dashboards. So in here, we have a different dashboard for each question type. Let's say there's one for single select and choose all that apply questions. There's one for this top 2 box, which is, you have a scale from 1 to 6, and who's picking 5 or 6. It's called a top 2 box. Got a percentage in there. And then, we have ones for just general like NPS or Likert scales, different if it's a 6-point Likert or 7-point Likert. You want to have that particular setup, and then we don't use all of them in every survey, but then they're all available here as dashboards that we can just pull in as needed. And we typically have one slide per question. Sometimes if they're similar questions, they're kind of building on each other, then we'll have multiple questions. Again, you can kind of get a feel get some ideas for how this might work in your line of work if you're going to be presenting information. These are a couple of examples of how you might do that. Maybe we can just pause there and see if there's any questions so far on that.
There was a question that popped up in the chat about sizing of both the story itself as well as the tiles for the story titles.
Yes, great question. So what I typically do, I use a custom size. I fix the size. That's something that I would definitely recommend, fixing the size of your story, because especially with stories, this is true with dashboards as well. If you're going to have people looking at different screen sizes, then you don't want to have it to be automatic, because it's just going to kind of fill the screen, and it might move stuff around. And especially if you want to present something a certain way, then you're going to want to fix that size. I use 1440 by 860, and that I got to those dimensions by trial and error. Essentially, just wanting to be able to export it to PowerPoint, which I'll show you as well. So you can go in here and go to export. Export as PowerPoint. You say this story and then export. And that will export the story to a PowerPoint. You can have it in that format as well. And I got to this 1440 by 860 because that seemed to fit well in a PowerPoint slide. And then what you can do with that is then on your dashboards that you're going to be pulling into the story, you can, for the sizing, you can say fixed size and then fit to story. So you don't have to worry about getting the right dimensions on your dashboard. It's just going to fix it. It's going to make sure that it fits, within the story that you've created. So you might see some odd numbers here: 12, 14, 24 by 7, 43. You don't need to worry about that because it's just going to adjust it based on what you've already defined as the sizing for your story.
Another question popped up. Yeah, that said, if you wanted to maintain the filter from slide to side, you would have to use a combination of the dashboard and the slides. How does that work?
If you wanted to maintain a filter,
Yeah, so
then,
say it was selecting between, yes, I've used Tableau stories, no, I haven't, and what is a Tableau story? And you wanted it to always be the no answer. How would you have it consistent across?
Yeah, couple ways. One is you could just not make the filter visible on the dashboard. That would be the easiest way. If you never want to change that filter on the dashboard, just don't show it, or on the story, on your slides, then just don't show the filter on the dashboard. The other thing to keep in mind, I mentioned how you can keep or break that link, right? So it's just a matter of understanding. If you want it to stay the same, then just don't change it, basically. If you pull in, so let's say, we're looking at these demographics, and I want to duplicate this slide. So now it's education, right? And let's say, and it's actually, this is because I think because I already broke the link, it's going to be broken here as well. So let's do a blank one, pull in our demos. Yeah, because it's set to generation now. So if I want it to stay, either to stay as generation or whatever let's say I want it to stay with whatever I choose over here on the dashboard or in the rest of the workbook. I want it to maintain that link. Then you wouldn't change it on the slide, because anytime you change it, it's gonna break that link. One other quick thing. So with the layout, this navigator, it's called, at the top, which has these caption boxes, is what I've selected here. That's one option that you can do. Another option is numbers. So this different slide numbers. Just have dots if you're a minimalist, or arrows only, which is showing one at a time. One thing to kind of keep in mind, you can't have arrows on the caption boxes and numbers as well, or not, if you don't want them. I tend to keep them off, because for me, I always confuse this. As soon as I see the arrow, I think it's a scroll and that's just, so this is my sort of personal preference, is that I don't like having the arrows there. One thing you can do, so then there's the scroll bar, and that's what you would use. You can also use, if you have a trackpad, on your laptop. Right now, I'm using two finger scroll on my trackpad to scroll back and forth. So just put the cursor over these slides anywhere and scroll back and forth using two fingers on a trackpad. That's what I typically use to move around. And side note, you can do that in Tableau as well with all these tabs. So if you have one of these like monster workbooks that I often have, I always have a hard time like finding stuff. You can actually do the same thing in here. Is the two finger scroll horizontally to get to all of the different tabs you have in your workbook. I think I answered the questions that came up. Kind of got off on a little bit of a tangent there. Was there anything else?
I think that's all in the chat for now. So yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, we'll keep going. So there's a couple of examples that we walked through. Talked about story height and width, navigator options, dashboards versus worksheets within a story. I typically recommend dashboards. That's what I use. And the reason is that there's a couple reasons. If you were to put in, let's say you have a worksheet, or let's actually just maybe go to one of these guys, and we'll just copy it. If you were to put a worksheet in your story, just like a dashboard, it's going to come in at exactly what is in that worksheet or that dashboard. It's showing all my filters that I have in there. And typically when I want to be able to go back to a worksheet, and I'm going to be working with different filters and things and parameters in here that I probably don't want to show to the audience. And if I'm putting my worksheet directly into my story, then I don't have that option to look at it differently, to be able to see all my filters in my worksheet, but not in my story, because I put my worksheet in my story. So that's why I like to use dashboards in the story. Also, then you can have multiple worksheets, just more options. We talked about understanding the linkages between stories and dashboards. So filters, parameters, as well as text, can be specific to that particular slide, that particular story point. Some other tips and tricks. I talked about the two-finger horizontal scroll, text edits, different creative ways to use the text boxes, like we looked at. A couple other interesting things that I'm doing in this particular story for audience audit. One is updating parameters. Now, I would say if you kind of have like a one-off presentation, then this isn't needed. But if you are going to be doing the same sorts of presentations, maybe with different data in an ongoing fashion, one thing you can do is if you look at, we typically have the same slides like this: survey characteristics. So many people answered a survey between these dates. So some of these things are going to come through in the data, right? Like how many people answered it. And what you can do is you can use parameters to fill in some of these things, like the number of people, or minimum date, max date, as far as when was this, in this case, survey conducted. So what I've set up here is you can use parameter actions to say, so there's a number of different parameters that I've set up, like a minimum date, maximum date that's coming through in the data. So I've set up these parameters in a certain format, right? So this is a date, this is a date, this is a number, text, etc. And then I have this parameter action here, and this is all kind of behind the scenes. This isn't something I would present, right? So that's why it's pretty rough sort of dashboard. I just kind of put everything in one place so that it was easy to create these parameter actions, so that let's say I want to update those dates. So when I'm clicking on my parameter update worksheet, then my max date is going to be filled with this source field, which is the max response date parse, whatever your field is. And what that's going to do is, so when I have new data, a new survey that's coming in here, I can come in here and so let's say the last survey, was something different. There were 1,000 people, and the dates were some other dates. And now I come in, I've loaded in my new data, and I want to just refresh these parameters. It's going to update those, and it's going to update them over here and as well as, in a couple other places. So just, cool way. If you have, I'd only do this if you're going to be doing, the same sort of study over and over again, or presentation over and over again. But that's one cool thing you can do with parameter actions. And one other cool thing, and this isn't limited to stories, but if you have a logo or a picture that you're using with multiple dashboards, and particularly, again, in the case of if you have sort of a repeatable sort of thing that you're going to be doing, and maybe with different clients, let's say, in my case, you can have a picture, or perhaps a logo in the background that's not driven necessarily by, okay, if I go in here, I can always go into a dashboard and add a picture, right? So I can go in here and say add image, and then it will ask, okay, choose an image file. Instead of doing that, you can tie it to an actual worksheet, and then with that worksheet, then you can pull that into all your dashboards. What that can do is, if you're going to have a new, if you're going to want to replace that picture with something else in all the same places that it was before, then you can just replace it once instead of 10 times or however many times that you were doing it otherwise. So the way that to do this, I don't know if I set it up in here yet or not. So it does take a little bit of setup. So where's my calculator filter? Appear down here. See, did I create this yet? Yeah, I already created it. Okay. So you're going to create an X and a Y. It's just going to be minimum of 1. That's all it is. And the only here they are. The only purpose of this is to just set it up so now what we can do is, if whatever picture that you want to pull in here, we're going to use the map feature, and we're going to look at background images. I've already added one, but you could go in here and say add image. It will come up here, and then we'll look at, you want to know what the pixels are for the dimensions for that picture, and you just plug those in here. It's 200 by 200 in this case. Say okay, and I want to select it actually. I must be skipping a step here. I have it on another worksheet, so if I can't figure it out, then should be coming up. Maybe I have to do something. I'm not sure why it's not coming up. I do have it over here, logo. So then what you would do is we'll have the headers will still be here, right? So you'll go in here, edit the axis. Okay, it's going to be fixed 0 to 200 because that's what I know my height of the images. I know that already, and this is by 200 as well. Go in here and hide these headers again, and now see what might have been different. What was I not doing? I'm not sure why that wasn't working before. But anyway, that's kind of how you set this up. And now I have a worksheet with the picture, right? And obviously I still have to put this worksheet in everywhere I want it. So if you just have like one presentation, you want to bring in the same image, multiple times, you could do that. Obviously, just pull in the image. So this is helpful if you're going to need to replace a particular picture or logo multiple times. So I can go in now, and let's say I want to pull it in on my title slide. I can pull in my logo over here and do necessary formatting. And now, because this is my title and my end slide, it should come up on both, right? So it's on my title and my end slide as well. So just a quick tip that I've found helpful in the work that I've done in these examples. So, and I think we have 10 minutes left. If there's any other questions, I'm happy to take those now. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. This is my Tableau public profile as well. I'll put in, and I'll you know what, I'll send out, I don't know if we can send out links somewhere, but I can send out links to the stories that I shared today as well. Any other questions come through?
Josh, I had two things for you.
Yeah.
So, and maybe you can tell me if you've done this in your work, but you talked about like this is more presentation than it is like deep diving into like a dashboard, which makes sense. Have you started to use in your presentations this story mode rather than PowerPoint? Because we found in previous cases where it's almost better to do it in this Tableau Story mode, because if you bring up a static image in a PowerPoint and someone's like, what does that number mean? You're like, I don't know. I'll get back to you when I have time. Or if you're in the Tableau Story, you're like, what's that number mean? Let's filter it. Let's hover on it. Let's get you an answer right away. That will kind of drive adoption for Tableau in your business. That will make people want to be looking forward to all your presentations if it's that interactive versus PowerPoint that everybody does.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the key reasons that I do it. Yeah, I don't know that I've really exported to PowerPoint and then shown it, like presented from PowerPoint with the exported story. I don't think I've ever done that. I mean, some people will want that option available so that it's, you know, easier to distribute.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can. What I've done is you can send it to people so that they can, you know, you can put it online, obviously. If you have Tableau online and you have give people access, or set, you know, tell them to download Tableau Reader, and then they can interact with that as well. That's typically what I've done. And usually if people, you know, if they're not familiar with Tableau or kind of visualizing data, then that they might be at the stage of just give me the PowerPoint, right? But once they see it, if you can actually give them, you know, present the data to them, then they want to be able to do that too, right? So that's the way I typically do it.
And I know I did this a long time ago. I haven't done it since, and I've been trying since you started talking, of embedding Tableau inside of PowerPoint so that you can interact with the dashboard inside your presentation. So it's kind of like the reverse. You can like put it in there, and I can't do it now, but have you ever done that where not just the image, but like actually have that dashboard inside of PowerPoint?
I have not. I did not know that was possible.
You have to insert a web page or web objects, then put the embedded code in. Like maybe you have to have Tableau Server in order to get that. But I'm not quite sure how it works because it's been a long time. But I didn't know if you had any experience with that.
No. And I'm curious. But I mean, if you're going to go to that effort, you know, I would say just pull up the web page. I mean, unless there's something, you know, that's the one thing that you can't do. You know, once you export it to PowerPoint, it's basically exporting images, right? So you can't like change anything on there, or I mean, you can always go in and add, you know, stuff on top of it. You're just working in PowerPoint at that point, right?
Yeah. I think the time that I had done it was when we were all in the office, you know, like 7-8 years ago, and like it was inside of a larger deck where there's different people that stand up and they talk, and another person stands up and talk, and then I put my piece in it, and then had the dashboard to interact with during that talk. But like in today's virtual world, that's not as relevant, I guess.
Yep.
Someone did comment that they used to embed dashboards within PowerPoint, but over the past year, they haven't had much success. So they wonder if something within Tableau has changed to impact that. So,
Could have
There's
been
also,
Microsoft too that like
yeah,
stopped allowing Tableau to do that.
yeah. There is another attendee that has their hand raised. It's Christopher Lowry. I'm going to allow him to talk. So Chris, if you want to unmute, you can ask your question to Josh. Okay, he didn't know it was raised. No worries. So, seeing no more questions,
I have one other thing.
Yeah.
So just to show kind of this is what the output looks like if you're going to export it to PowerPoint. It's gonna give you this sort of title slide, which you probably want to change. And then it's gonna export exactly what you see on the screen. You may or may not want this the caption boxes or this navigator to show. I think that might look a little bit clunky.
Yeah.
So what I realized what you can do. So let's look at let's look at this example. So if we exported this, it'd have these blue caption boxes coming across the top. What you can do is, so let's say I copy my story here, and I'm going to change my I want to go to navigator. So go to format, so story format, and now I can change my shading to white or whatever background I'm using, and the navigator still there, right? But I can't see it, and because I'm exporting, what I see here essentially, now it's going to come out. You're not gonna see it anymore, and you don't see the scroll bar, which you do see, like in this one, you can kind of see that scroll bar there. You don't see it this way, which kind of surprised me, but I'm not complaining because I didn't want to see it anyway, right? So that's a really cool kind of hack, right? If you don't want to see that caption box coming through. I think what would be really cool is if Tableau gave an option. I mean, one way to do it, probably, and what you might have in PowerPoint anyway, is kind of like slide numbers, right? Maybe you wouldn't want it at the top. That would be the only thing that I would say. Like if you had the option to maybe put this somewhere else on the slide, that would be cool, and that would be like perfect because you could have your slide numbers, right there when you export it. But some different options that you have there, and a little bit of a hack if you wanted to do that. If you had a different background color, you could set it to that color as well. It would disappear, like if you had it this kind of beige color that I have in this other one. So
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm going to quickly go and share my screen. Let's all thank Josh so much for his presentation. It has been great learning more about stories. We also have some other awesome speakers coming our way. In June, actually, we don't have anything lined up. We might talk about some lessons from the Tableau conference, but if you're interested in speaking, I encourage you to reach out. It's orlandotug@gmail.com, and we'd love to put you in our lineup. We're going to be talking about marketing campaign analytics in July, and then we're going to be talking about Figma. If you haven't used that tool yet, it's a great way to kind of visually pump up your Tableau dashboards in August. And without further ado, we are going to give away a $25 Tableau gift card. I have entered in some names from the attendees. So let's spin it. And if the person is in attendance, you're the winner. Jay, are you still here with us?
I don't see Jay in the participant list.
Okay, well then we're gonna spin again.
Missed it by 2 minutes.
I know.
We're still within that 1 hour window, so we're good.
He missed it by 2 minutes.
Don't see an Ellen.
Jeez. Third time's the charm.
Elena. Yeah, yes, I see her there.
Awesome. So, Erin, is it best for her to confirm her email address by reaching out to us at Orlando Tug, or should she just add it in the chat?
We have her splash information, so we can get that from her.
Awesome. Okay, so thank you for everyone who stayed on. I'd like to thank Josh again. The other thing we wanted to announce is we received some job openings from both Universal and VisLib. So if you are looking to maybe do data visualization in different ways, you may want to check out these job postings and apply. Finally, thank you all so much for joining, and we'll let you know what's going on in June, and we hope to see you there. Thank you so much again, Josh.
Thanks, Josh.
We'll see you all in June.